Listen, I've been watching the sport of MMA for quite some time at this point, and this is not something that happens to me a lot. Not saying I'm right all the time. There's actually a lot of times where I'm not right, but there's not many times where I'm completely dumbfounded about the result of a certain fight. And that's kind of how I felt after the main event of UFC Sacramento. So if you guys haven't seen it, Gregory Rodrigues ended up defeating Fluffy Hernandez by a decision. Very, very weird how everything played out. Now, going into this fight, I personally had Fluffy Hernandez winning the fight. I thought the first two rounds would be hell for him, especially round one. But once we got to round three, four, five, I thought Fluffy would be able to start to pull away against the guy in Gregory Rodrigues, who is somewhat of a known gasser. And that's kind of the type of stylistic matchup where Fluffy thrives in. But that's not what we saw. If you guys didn't watch the fight, round one and two was a nightmare, absolutely, for Fluffy Hernandez. He was getting pieced up a little bit on the feet. The calf kicks were a real big issue. And by the end of round two, Fluffy's front calf was absolutely destroyed. He was forced to fight at a southpaw the rest of the fight, basically, and it just did not go well for him. But he survived. Most importantly, he survived. And in round three, he had a very, very good round. It seemed like Gregory Rodrigues was starting to gas out. Fluffy was starting to have more success, finding a couple takedowns, landing some damage, landing good elbows on breaks as well. And it seemed like, the fight was going in the direction of a traditional Fluffyverse type performance, but it didn't. Then we get into round four, and all of a sudden, G-Rod has a burst of energy. He got a second wind, won the round clearly, landed some good shots, more calf kicks, big shots up top as well. Fluffy survives. And round five, it was, I guess, relatively close. I thought G-Rod arguably won it. But then, G-Rod wins a decision. Very, very weird to see how everything played out. But in my opinion, the real difference maker in this fight and the real reason for why we saw what we saw was the calf kicks. In round one, the fact that G-Rod was landing big shots and Fluffy didn't get finished, I think was kind of surprising to me. I thought if G-Rod was landing his shots, he'd find a finish, especially with the body shots, which he was landing quite a few, and especially even with the shots up top. He just has that level of power, even if Fluffy has shown a good chin. But the real thing that was the worst possible case scenario for Fluffy was the calf kicks, because it kind of didn't allow him to do a couple of things. For one, it didn't allow him to strike that effectively, as Fluffy throughout the rest of the fight was forced to strike at a southpaw, which he's just not comfortable in. And we hear about this all the time. When guys are forced to fight out of a stance that they're not comfortable in, offensively, they're not going to be as good as they normally are in their preferred stance. But also for two, their defense is not going to be as good. And when you're fighting a guy who has the power of RoboCop, that's not a great strategy, or that's not a great formula, I guess I should say. But the second issue that Fluffy had after having his calves destroyed after round two is the takedown attempts. Fluffy wasn't able to find takedowns in this fight really at all. Maybe he found one, maybe he found two, but for the most part, he wasn't able to find takedowns. And not the only reason, but a big reason for why he wasn't able to find them was because his calf was absolutely messed up. He wasn't able to push off and drive on that leg and find the takedowns. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason, because it just didn't seem like his takedowns were getting that close in a lot of moments, and that had nothing to do with his calf. But there were a few moments where he had a single leg. There was one or maybe two moments in the fight where he had a double leg, but he wasn't able to find them against Gregory Rodrigues, even in round three when Gregory Rodrigues was quite tired. So I don't know. I think the calf kicks absolutely played a big role. And I think my main takeaway from this fight, which is what I was saying on my live stream that I just did, the main takeaway that I have from this fight is Fluffy Hernandez is slightly fraudulent. I think it's time to say that at this point. He had a really good run. He was doing guys really bad, especially his fight against Roman Dolidze, where he put on, just about one of the better performances that I've ever seen. I don't know if it's possible to dominate a guy more than what Fluffy was able to do against Roman Dolidze, but Roman Dolidze sucks. When you take a look at Fluffy's win streak, it's not that impressive, to be honest. He was able to dominate Roman Dolidze, but as I said, Dolidze is not very good. He also was able to beat Brennan Allen, which was by far the best win of his career. That's a good win there. Then he was able to beat Roman Kopylov, who's okay, but he's never going to be higher than a top 10 guy at the rankings or anything like that. I don't even know if he gets number 10, to be honest. So that's okay. And stylistically, it's a great fight for Fluffy. A known gasser, at least somewhat of a gasser that fights off the back foot. It'll allow Fluffy to go forward. So he was able to win in that one. Outside of that, he was able to beat Michel Pereira, also a known gasser that actually did hurt Fluffy to the body in round one. But a lot of his wins, I can't remember other guys off the top of my head, but a lot of Fluffy's wins were not that great, I guess. At least the opponents that he fought were not that great. So after seeing him lose to Strickland, which is not a bad loss, Strickland stylistically was a bad fight for him, I thought going into it, and obviously after the fact. And also he's good, he's a champion. But after losing to Strickland and now losing a good stylistic matchup, I thought against Girod, I think he's slightly fraudulent. I think it's time to say that. If Fluffy ever wanted to become a champion, he absolutely had to beat a guy like G-Rod, but he didn't. He didn't. He lost to him, and he lost to him by a decision, like probably the worst way possible for him to lose that fight. If he got knocked out in the first round, it is what it is. It is what it is. G-Rod hits hard, and, it could happen. But seeing him lose a decision, man, not great. Not great. And seeing him not be able to find a takedown, basically, throughout the entirety of the fight, not great. So, could Fluffy still beat fighters in the rankings? Sure. 100% he can. I think he could beat guys in the UFC, but I don't think he's ever going to become a champion. I think that's pretty clear after this fight against G-Rod, and I don't think he ever becomes a top 5 guy or anything like that. I just don't think he ever gets there, unfortunately. So we'll see who he fights next. I know for G-Rod, he did call out DDP, which is a tough stylistic matchup, man. Really, really tough. I think he loses that fight. I think he does gas in that fight. And I think he does get finished in the later rounds of the fight, if it's a 5-round fight, which it probably would be against Trickus. But I will say, respect to G-Rod for calling out a fighter that's a really bad stylistic fight for him in DDP. So respect him, but I don't think he'll win that fight. I don't know if he's even going to get that fight next. I guess we shall see. But yeah, just kind of dumbfounded to see the result of the fight. G-Rod's landing all his shots, but doesn't find the finish. Fluffy survives, but doesn't pace G-Rod late. G-Rod wins a decision, even winning a later round of that fight, round 4, maybe even round 5, to be honest. That was a close one as well. Surprising, man. It happens sometimes. I mean, it happened to me in the fight between Tatsuda Taira and Joshua Van. I was dumbfounded. The fact that Taira was able to find takedowns, get into full mount consistently. He got the fight to where he wanted it to be, but still did nothing with it. Dumbfounded after that fight, and honestly, a similar thing here. Maybe not as dumbfounded, but pretty surprised to see, the result of this fight, at least the way it played out. G-Rod could have won. I wouldn't have been surprised, but the way it played out, pretty surprising. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Who do you think, or what do you think about this fight, and who do you think should be next for both Fluffy and G-Rod? But until the next time, fellas, I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace out, boys.